with electricity and water because I knew it was dangerous. And I'd looked at these machines before, but I was busy doing another project. And the final push was a friend who was incredibly disillusioned about 9/11 and couldn't see any positive way forward. And I said, hey man, come on, there's some good things going on in the world. Cars run on water. He said, no, they don't. I said, they do. Come on, let's do some experiments. So we spent about a week doing silly experiments and then ultimately put a unit on his car, which was a big Audi coupe that had seen the best part of 20 years of service. And then it drove us to London and back doing 55 miles to the gallon, which is pretty unbelievable and far in extreme of whatever Volkswagen and Audi thought it could possibly do with the wind behind it on a flat road in the best possible circumstances when it was brand new. And that was enough to encourage me to take it further and develop a proper product that was bulletproof, because to me there's too many people doing different kinds of research, and there's certain elements. You know, if you've got a reliable gas machine, then you can go on to make adjustments to the car, make different kinds of circuits for running the gas machine. If you haven't got a reliable gas machine, then you don't have a base mark to start doing any of the other stuff from. So I concentrated on the actual unit itself, making sure it didn't melt in traffic jams, didn't melt if people didn't fill it with water. I was going to design the product around a Volvic bottle, but they wouldn't pay me to do it. I think they thought I was joking.
So what we've got here is that's the water cell there, is it? Just at the back?
Yeah, that whole stainless unit is the actual.
And that goes right the way down. Quite deep actually, isn't it?
It's 37 centimetres from the top to the bottom. It's bolted down at the bottom. This is a viewing tube, so you can see how much water's in. There's a drain tap, so you can drain it all out if you wanted to.
Why are you going up to me?
Okay, yeah.
And then this is where the gas comes out. It goes straight into the air intake over there.
Alright.
Okay, right, yeah.
Start it on. People think I'm a bit strange, or they think it's really clever, or they don't want to know. There's only three real ways of dealing with something that's new. The neighbours are very nice to me, but they keep me at arm's length, which I'm very comfortable with. But yeah, it's reasonably well received. I think people need to touch, feel and see the technology before they'll invest in it, which means I'm going to be busy doing a lot of repeating myself and talking to lots of people. But to be honest, I haven't spoken about it for a long time now. We sell them on eBay and they've been in a few magazines, and I let people discuss it amongst themselves, if that makes sense. This is the latest truck unit. This is the viewing tube, so you can see how much liquid's inside. This, if it's still on camera, is the drain. And here is the connection for the live. And the unit itself is the earth. So it only needs one wire. Very simple to install. Gas comes out here. And water goes in there. Drive it really nice. they're at least 40 miles per gallon,
Yeah.
and it'll do 30 pulling this trailer. Whereas an ordinary Land Rover will only do 30 on its own. Yeah, the car one's about this tall. Conventional electrolysis uses flat plates, which are very much like a lead acid battery. And electricity flows from one side to the other, and it polarises the plates. The gas sticks to the plates. The gas can't leave the plates because it's magnetically charged and wants to stay where it is, which stops the plates from making any more gas. So in an attempt to fix that problem, you would normally pulse a gas machine with the electricity and keep turning it on and off, or you would vibrate the gas machine. With this particular unit, it's more like a tree. It's nature. It's concentric tubes, and instead of electricity flowing in one direction, because if anyone remembers electricity, magnetism and force, wherever you've got electricity, you've also got magnetism and force coming off in these different directions. And because we're moving inside or outside, depending on how you feel about which way the electricity flows, you've got an infinite number of paths that are coming in and confusing each other, which is creating an infinite number of magnetic fields, which creates this lovely spiralling flower when you turn it on. And obviously it boosts the force thing, which lifts all the bubbles off, and you don't need a pulse machine, you don't need to shake it. I don't know what all the white powder is, but it's not leaked out of the machine, but it obviously has. It's come out of that dodgy tap. But this has been the one that's been in for the longest. It's probably sort of at least 5 or 6 years young now. And it's not dirty inside, it's still lovely. And this car's a bit special, it's got a weather machine on it.
Oh, what?
Well, in nature there is no vacuums, and in an engine there's a huge vacuum. And when we have a vacuum in nature, water expands to fill the gap, which is what gives us weather and atmospheric pressure changes. So in here is whatever I want to throw away. Solvents and strange turpentines and paint stripper and old petrol and things that I don't want to throw in the drain, I put in here. And obviously when I come off the throttle, there's a huge vacuum created in the manifold which vaporises everything in there. It boils it cold. It's enough vacuum to vaporise water cold, and sucks the vapour in there. It doesn't give me much more miles per gallon, but it gives me a much better throttle response, because as soon as I'm back on the throttle there's already a lot of fuel there to burn. It was just the way I've been watching these behave better when they're running under a vacuum, which is why we don't have a bubbler. They behave much better, and I thought, well, I've got this big lump here that no one seemed to have, someone's put there for a reason, but no one's made any facilities available. So I went to a specialist place to get that put on, and then had this thing and this made, and gave it a go. And it's amazing how quickly that gets emptied. But I'm not adding it in a way it'll endanger the engine.
Yeah.
I'm adding it in a vaporised form that's, combustible.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
And even if the gas isn't combustible, it'll burn in there anyway.
Yeah.
There's plenty of hydrogen going in. If you want, we can drive it up the road. It drives itself up the road, so we can go first, second and third, maybe fourth, without any throttle. It'll just take us a full car of people up the road. You can set off in 5th gear. There's something wrong with the wiring at the moment, but it works. Petrol and diesel engines, as lovely and efficient as we may think they are incredibly inefficient, and the majority of the fuel that we pay, £1.40 something a litre it is this week, it'll probably be £1.50 next week, is blowing out of the exhaust. And instead of actually stopping it from blowing out of the exhaust, the car manufacturers invented things called catalytic converters and after combustion filters, that collect the fuel that we've paid for, and then they take it out of those devices afterwards, and we have to pay £1,000 to replace the filter. That, you know, so we could save the environment when we could have actually burnt the fuel efficiently in the first place. So what's actually going on in an engine is that the combustion is, instead of it creating heat that's being transferred into your engine, and your engine needs to try and take that heat away, that heat's being converted into energy and pushing your piston, and your engine runs cooler, which is less strain and less wear and less heat. Is all good things for an engine. And anything that will increase that very, you know, if they're only 17% efficient, if you can make them 20% efficient, then you're going to get a lot more miles per gallon. And all it is a secondary form of combustion. There's a lot of people who are a bit confused on the internet who think that it is a fuel that you're making out of these machines, and it is a fuel. But to me, that's not where it's being used best. It's being used best as a combustion enhancer. You know, it really does create a chain reaction in the chamber of the engine, and it's a completely different engine. But no accelerator.
Yeah.
We've got the vacuum gauge here that tells us how well it's burning. It's got two unique properties in combustion. It's got the highest RON and the lowest MON. Now, RON is your ability for the fuel to not knock when it's in the engine, and I've forgotten what the other one is, but it's the opposite pretty much. So one's to do with increasing the burn, and one's to stop it from exploding, basically. Now, hydrogen seems to do both of those things, which contradict one another. So it's an incredible fuel enhancer, because if you've got one piston that needs to burn faster and another piston that needs to burn slower, the hydrogen will fix the system. So if you've got 8 cylinders there all doing the wrong thing, they're all counterproductive, they're not working together. It's only when you've got a perfectly balanced set of cylinders that you're really getting the best from your engine. And because the hydrogen can help the combustion process on both sides of the fence, you're suddenly evening out the burn in some of the ropiest, rattliest engines with pistons and valves going in all directions, which is another good thing, because you can get so many more miles out of a car. That shows you the vacuum in the engine, so if I rev the engine quickly, there won't be enough air going into the engine, so the vacuum will collapse. See it drop down. If I gradually give fuel to the engine and the engine burns it properly,
Yeah.
then I'll get a better combustion. So if I do this, that means I'm burning much cleaner.
Right, yeah.
I've got a higher vacuum than I would have on the tick over. Well, if we are ticking over, we're not going anywhere, but
Yeah.
it'll run like that down the road.
Yeah.
Because it's burning more efficiently. One of the real boosts that I see is people spend a lot of money on the car and maintaining the car, and they don't spend enough money changing the oil. And when you run a hydrogen system, your oil doesn't get dirty as quick because you've got less unburnt fuel in your oil. And it's those carbon deposits that are building up in the oil that make the oil black. And it's also those carbon deposits that are like coal dust rubbing away at your engine, wearing it away, which causes engine damage to every bit of your engine. And that's what makes an old engine an old engine. If none of that happened, your engine would do a million miles and it wouldn't be knocking, and it would be a lovely happy engine. But people don't pay enough attention to cleaning the oil, because ultimately if you've got mucky oil, you're rubbing away at your own engine and paying for the privilege of abusing it.
We're in 5th gear here. Oh no, we're in
I didn't like that though, leave it in the
3rd gear. And it just wants to go, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then everything through.
That's without any acceleration
No
whatsoever.
acceleration whatsoever.
So actually, it's not just the thing; it's also the fact that's how you drive it, isn't it? That seems to be a major part.
Yeah, if you're doing it to miles per gallon, I mean, it's pointless me driving up and down the road really fast and going, look, it's really fast, because that's not really how you measure anything.
Yeah. What's this? What is that doing?
That's the display that's telling us how many amps it's using.
So this actually would this come with the standard WaterBoost kit, or is this just?
Yeah, normally that would light up blue. Getting so much more power at low revs, you don't need to put your foot on the throttle. What we actually need is 20 gears. So they're going through the gears, leave the engine running on tick over, and then you don't need a load of fuel. Sit there pulling a train because you've got so much more energy from a small engine that wouldn't normally run at those revs. We had a gentleman who came who was a doctor of permaculture, organic farming, everything, and he didn't tell us. And he came to have his gas machine fitted. And he spent the day with us, and he kept asking us strange questions, and we kept answering them with brutal northern honesty. Like, for example, this little guy, little lad was putting rubbish in the fire, and this doctor was saying, well, should you be doing that? Isn't it causing pollution? And this little boy said, well, no, trees live off carbon. It's carbon what comes out the fire. Trees live off it. And this guy was like, And of course, you know, he's been fed the whole nonsense about environmental and global warming, blah, blah, blah. Hence taking the whole option of being a permaculture expert and organic farming and everything else. But like all, there's always a strange irony. He didn't turn up in a very friendly car. It would fail the emissions. It was so smoky. It was an old Peugeot. It was an animal of a vehicle. And we fitted the gas machine, and he said he'd done an emissions test before he came, which is why we knew it was definitely an MOT failure. He said, should I do an emissions test on the way home? And we said, well, no, leave it 200 or 300 miles to give it a chance to clean the engine. And he didn't. He had it tested on the way home, and it was already 60% less emissions. And then, of course, that went to 80% less emissions, and didn't get any better than that. But, you know, for a 300,000 mile Peugeot engine, that's pretty good.
So older cars easier to sort of just fit this sort of stuff in, or is it all?
It's just the same.
Yeah.
I don't use it very often now, so it's being charged. It's always being charged.
Yeah, yeah. Fantastic.
I had great fun with a vegetable oil Volkswagen that I just put neat vegetable oil in, just straight vegetable oil, none of this green diesel nonsense, mixing chemicals and rolling oil drums around in the garden. It was just vegetable oil from the supermarket, poured in the tank, no tank heating. It was done in the summertime, and I did some 40,000 miles in the car, but running hydrogen as well. And the car had done 500,000 miles when I started doing the experiments, and that was an incredible machine, but I can't really talk about it on camera because it was very fast. You know, a car that would struggle to do 85 when it was new because it was a 1.6 diesel estate car. It was a very small engine. In 1989, you know, the old Passat did 135 miles an hour with vegetable oil and hydrogen, which is just kept going faster and faster and faster.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
But obviously not on the UK roads. This is just an electrode boiler. This makes an incredible amount of steam, and you just got live and neutral.
So could you use that as a water heater almost?
Yep. It's a more efficient steam producer though, because it creates a lot more steam before it's boiled all the water.
Yeah.
I sold more of them when the public thought they were illegal, which really is fantastic fun. now that there's a number of different companies offering all kinds of different things, it just offers more confusion for people. People don't know whether they want to buy a £50 jam jar or a £500 stainless machine that's made properly. But what I'm finally getting now is customers that bought jam jars that found that it worked, but the jam jars are an intolerable solution, melting, falling apart, need cleaning. So people have been and ordered a proper one, decided to treat themselves. You know, which is a shame. They've gone through lots of hurdles first to get to the conclusion that they need to spend £500, but usually that's what we all do, isn't it? I do it myself. I go to the pound shop so many times, you know it doesn't work, and then you've got to buy a proper one. Cool. So there we go, we're running at, what would that be, 6 times 12, so 72 amps, would that be? 72 watts, sorry. I should have brought something to burn in with me really, as opposed to my pestle and mortar, but obviously it's going to make anything carbon, it eats for fun. It's very easy for this to go straight through a piece of wood.
Yeah.
Don't know what it does to ceramic, but obviously we're doing this as safely as possible with no goggles. See, it's melting the ceramic, or at least making it glow very... Oh, I thought, oh no, it's hurting my fingers. Ah! Yeah, that's warm. I can feel that heat here. You see how far away the paper is?
Yeah, it's burning it.
See, all the safety precautions, the fire crew here. As it's warming up,
Yeah.
it's pushing impurities out.
Yeah.
So even the air is an impurity. So as the impurities go, it'll get less and less visible, which is a problem. So normally when you use these for jewellery, you would bubble it through different solvents to create different coloured flames. Exactly the same machine that's in the other units. There's no difference between that unit and the big tall one. This is just a little 12 volt power supply. If it goes over 20 amps, it trips out. And it actually pulses at 5 amps, which is enough to keep this running.
Yeah.
Which stops the gas going back because it means it'll maintain pressure and keep burning. So I don't need any safety devices. Still can't do it without flinching. That's gone bang so many times.
News here at 6 o'clock, an age-old dream becoming a reality. A local inventor has discovered a way, hear this, to use water to run your car.